Hello, welcome to Every Horror Movie on Netflix, the show where we watch, review, and discuss every horror movie on Netflix. Back again, it's me, Chris, here with Patrick.
Hello.
And Steven.
Hi.
And this week, you know, every now and then there's a digital release that just is so horrifying, so unsettling, gets under your skin. I'm talking, of course, about the Cats trailer.
Yeah, I knew this was going to be a classic bait and switch.
The I Got 5 on it version of the Cats trailer.
Yes.
So good.
That's the
Jordan
only version
Peele
I've seen.
Endorsed.
Oh,
Jordan
really?
Peele retweeted it, and he was like, "Yes." He just said yes. That
He
was
signed on to
bone
direct
chilling.
Cats too.
Yeah, that shit is fucked up. I mean, not like this is a novel opinion that we're all expressing here, but I don't know.
I haven't seen
It's so
America
much worse
come
than I
together
dreamed.
like this since like 9/11. Like the consensus behind the Cats trailer and how it's making people feel, and it's not very mean spirited either. Everyone's like, this looks horrible. I can't wait to see this movie.
Oh, I can't wait. I will be there day one.
I'm really interested to see how it does at the box office. Like if it succeeds at all.
Yeah, can't
They're
wait to see those
releasing
numbers.
it the same day as Star Wars.
What?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're just
That's
slamming
ballsy.
it on the
God,
table.
what is the thinking behind that? I wonder.
My guess is the thinking is like, it's like, you know, when I was a kid, my dad would take me to see like whatever crazy, like Star Wars or Men in Black or whatever fucking movie I wanted to see. My mom would be like, all right, well, I'm here. This is what we're doing today. I don't want to watch this movie. I'm going to go watch something else in the next theater.
You know what? Cats is totally like the mom movie if Star Wars is the dad movie, because they're both nostalgia trips, right?
Yeah.
I'm just so fascinated by Cats in the first place. Like I found out the other day that it's 3 hours long. Like
What?
the Broadway musical is 3 hours long, and I'm just so puzzled by the fact that it was a popular sensation in the first
And
place.
it's based on like T.S. Eliot book of poems that's like this. I mean, listeners can't see me doing this with my fingers, but it's like a quarter-inch thick. It's a
thin,
tiny little
it's a
thing. It's
slim
got Edward
volume.
Gorey illustrations. It's super cute and fun. And it turned into this bloated monstrosity. But that was the 90s, right?
80s, I think.
I
don't
remember
know.
it being like early 90s. It probably maybe it was late 80s.
I think it was maybe
early
late
90s.
80s.
I don't know.
But yeah, it's so puzzling because I mean that was like the, you know, if your mom and dad like went to New York. I mean, not that my mom and dad did this, but this was like the go-to. You know, if
You gotta
you're
see
in
Cats.
New York, you know, if you're not a theater person necessarily, but it's like, let's go see a Broadway show. Let's see the 3-hour thing where people are walking around in fucking yak suits singing T.S. Eliot poems. It's just such an unlikely thing to have been a pop culture sensation at all in the first place.
And well, people love cats.
I have
Yeah.
no evidence. I have no evidence of this, but I would expect that there's like no less than 10 Seinfeld episodes where Cats is a plot point.
Oh yeah,
or just a background
absolutely.
detail or something.
Jerry, I got tickets for Cats.
I had to break up with him because he wanted to take me to Cats.
He wanted to take you to Cats.
Oh,
I've never seen a full episode of Seinfeld, so I can't contribute.
Me neither.
wow. What?
No.
Wow.
And I grew up with a family who loved Seinfeld.
I mean,
My family has seen every Seinfeld episode multiple times, and I somehow have never seen a full up.
that's
I had more of an
ridiculous.
X-Files family, which you would be happy with, Chris.
I
was
yeah.
a little too young to
And me.
remember them.
I was
but-
an X-Files family, but I gotta say though that like we are like millennials because when you say we've never watched Seinfeld, it sounds like we're like 16.
Well, it sounds like I don't know. It sounds like we're just trying to be cool. We're trying to be hipsters. I've never seen
I don't know.
Seinfeld.
Crazy.
5 years old. That shit was beneath me.
Anyway, what else did we watch this week, guys?
I've been on kind of an Ozploitation journey, which is a term I love that I learned from the documentary Not Quite Hollywood. Have you guys seen this? It came out.
No, but I have heard the term. Maybe from you.
I saw it probably from me.
I had never heard
actually
this
at Motor
term.
City Nightmares. I remember Patrick like giggling to Allison when I said that, like as if I just made it up or something.
Ozploitation?
Yeah.
I was fascinated when you texted it the other day because it's spelled O-Z, exploitation, and I was like exploiting the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, wow, that would be a fun thing. Oh, well, that's Midsummer, I guess. No, I've had I won't say lifelong, but since I was about like 6 or 7, one of my favorite aunts, Kathy, went to Australia, and I just became fascinated with Australia and the outback and all the, the scenery and the crazy creatures and just sort of like the whole deadly vibe of the place. So like Walkabout's one of my favorite movies. I watch it like annually. Picnic at Hanging Rock. So lately I've been getting back into the Ozploitation genre. I started with Long Weekend, which you guys have to see. I like watched it on Amazon Prime and bought it the next day on Blu-ray. It's about a couple who goes into the outback, and they're just like awful people, and they treat the environment terribly with total like disregard, and nature strikes back. That's basically it, and it's bananas.
I'm
Love
in.
it. I texted Chris. I was literally screaming at the ending. Like I jumped out of my seat and screamed because I couldn't believe it went where it went.
Damn.
And then I followed up with Road Games, which is a Richard Franklin movie starring Stacy Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis, like hot off of Halloween.
Wow.
And they're an unlikely duo on the longest stretch of road in the outback, who are kind of unbeknownst to them at first on the trail of a Jack the Ripper-esque serial killer.
Where do you find and watch all these movies, Steven?
I listen to a lot of horror podcasts. I read a lot of horror websites and magazines. Road Games is not horror, actually, even though it involves a serial killer. It's just kind of like a cult classic at this point.
So my experience with Australian films in general, or Australian films about Australia, is that Australians seem to have a really fucked up perception of their own country. Like every movie you see about Australia just makes Australia seem like a fucking horrible place.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Wake and Freight, like Walkabout.
Oh, yeah, totally forgot about Wake and Freight.
Cargo.
Yeah.
They do not, or fucking Mad Max, like none of them make Australia out to be a place that you want to go. Is it similar in the films you're talking about?
Oh, yeah. No, like Long Weekend does not make me want to, I mean, because I'm fucked up and I like horror and I like horrifying shit, I still want to visit the outback, but like Long Weekend made me kind of afraid to go to the outback. Even a Walkabout, there's like creepy close-ups of like lizards and giant spiders and shit.
Yeah,
like,
definitely
there's a lot of horrifying stuff in there. But it's also interesting that like they seem to have a similar relationship to their indigenous people that we do, where there's a lot of kind of like politics involved. Like Walkabout's a lot about that, and so is
Cargo.
So is Cargo, yeah. And I find Cargo, that fucking baby. But I find that like really fascinating too, that like in all these films there is like they all touch on that in some way or another. And then I ended with Body Melt, which I bought at Motor City Nightmares. I might have mentioned on the podcast before. That was a little too aggressively weird for me. That's where I've been at horror-wise. What about you guys?
So my recent horror watching activities have been slightly less obscure than yours, unsurprisingly.
Well, if you live in Australia, these films are not obscure, but I point taken.
By American standards.
I wonder how many listens we get from Australia. Hey, if you're in Australia and you have some opinions about Ozploitation, send us a little email. Leave us a Facebook message. We want to hear from you.
Tell us if your country is a hellscape or not.
Yeah, tell us if it's a hellscape. Oh, and give us 5 stars on iTunes while you're at it. Ha! All right, go ahead, Patrick.
The new season of Stranger Things. I like this show more and more with every season. I actually wasn't a huge fan of the first season, but I like it more and more with each one. And the new one is super horror-y, and I'm really digging it. There's some unsettling shit. It's intense. I mean, it's still funny and charming in the way that the previous 2 seasons were, but I've really been digging it, kind of to my surprise, because again, the first one was a bit underwhelming for me. And also, fucking Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends.
Yeah,
the trailers.
Big news.
It looks fucking sweet. That 24-second trailer.
Well, it's footage from the Halloween remake. It's not new footage.
I know it's not new footage, but that 24 seconds, the way it was shot, edited, voiceovered, and titled, was more entertaining to me than any 24 seconds of the new Halloween movie. Fucking loved it.
I love the new Halloween movie.
I didn't. It didn't do much for me. But I love the titles.
If only
too.
there was a podcast where people could hear what we thought about that Halloween movie.
Yeah, reminder, guys, we reviewed every single Halloween movie in a single episode, so you can go check that out if you want to be reminded how we felt about the new Halloween movie.
40.
He's
so much
got
cool
the
stuff
numbers
coming out
here.
of San Diego Comic-Con already, but there are action figures from Halloween 3 coming from NECA. The trick-or-treaters with replaceable heads, like after their heads get all weird and the worms start coming out and shit.
You know,
it's amazing.
I actually just listened to the How Did This Get Made episode about Halloween 3 because I didn't realize that they had even reviewed it. And you know what? Halloween 3 holds a special place in my heart, and I feel like that's going to be like an annual Halloween season rewatch for me. It's not a good movie, but it's so weird.
It's a weird movie.
Chris, is it possible to play us into the main segment of the show with a little bit of the Silver Shamrock jingle?
Yeah, how many more days till Halloween, guys?
Too many. Too fucking many.
Too many days till Halloween.
All right.
Halloween. Too many days till Halloween. Silver Shamrock. We did it for you.
Perfect. Yeah, so what this episode is really about, I haven't watched anything horror related except
this episode is really
except my homework for this week's every horror movie on Netflix. We watched The Perfection on Netflix, a Netflix original, or N film, I guess, is how they're rebranding the Netflix
I noticed
originals.
that when I watched it today. I was like, is that new or did I just never pay attention?
I thought you were saying N film.
No, it's not N film, it's N film.
My friend refers to it as Nollywood.
That's amazing. We're going to steal that.
That's kind of funny because, well, for the listening audience, we sometimes, as a shorthand, when we're referring to just movies that we either like or movies that are sort of like self-consciously just very like, just they really want to make it known that they're a film.
High art.
Yeah, high art. We'll describe it as an film with a capital F.
Yes.
So it's funny to me when you said N film, I was like, oh, you mean N film?
Well, I did think of that when I saw the N, because it says an N. Anyway.
N film.
Yeah, The Perfection. This made some waves. I don't know, when did it come out? About a month ago?
Yeah.
We're always behind on these things. Sorry, guys.
These things. But I heard you guys talking about it.
Don't
and I was
apologize.
Really
Chris made the pick.
That's true. Chris apologized.
I made the pick because I had heard kind of you guys talking about it. And it was getting some buzz, and it looked like a movie I might want to see.
It looked like N film.
It looked like a good film. So The Perfection. And now it's the thing about The Perfection, though, having seen it, it's going to be very hard to talk about. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of really briefly give our thoughts. And I think we're going to review it very quickly and then go with the spoiler realm, upon which we will give you a plot synopsis. And then we will kind of discuss how we felt. It's really hard to talk about this movie.
This movie is
spoiling.
it's one big spoiler. It's like 4 acts, and there's a major twist in every act.
And there's a major twist in the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Basically.
The Netflix description says that it's genre bending, and I would agree with that.
Yeah.
It kind of takes you through various movements, much like a cello piece.
No, specifically for cello. Like, there's something about the cello that it just lends itself to genre bending.
I played cello. I was actually going to
say, when are you going to drop the bombshell?
What? Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, no, I'm not kidding you. So,
I love, I'm a sucker for the cello.
Podcast host, Renaissance man, and cellist.
So here's the thing.
Chris
I went to the I spent my elementary
at the Backoff Institute.
Basically, no, I spent my elementary education at a Montessori school in which everyone participated in music. And I started off with violins. I was playing a violin.
Wait, no, multiple violins. You said violins. You were playing like 4 at a time.
I was in the violin
line
section,
them up down
right?
your arm as many as you can fit.
So, from probably, I want to say 3rd grade, maybe 4th grade, I was playing the violin.
They called him Tobo.
What?
Oh, see, visual gag for our listeners.
I just mimed holding a bow for a violin with my foot, listening audience. Tobo.
So, I played violin, and then guess why I switched to cello? Can you guess why I switched to cello?
Because the violin was too small for you.
It hurt your arm to hold it up.
No, because when you perform, the cellos get to sit down.
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at. Like, you're lazy, so you play the
Yeah,
cello
I'm
'cause
lazy,
you
and I didn't really want to be there. And so instead of standing up, you get to sit down the whole time. How cool is that, right?
Yeah.
But I wasn't very good at violin.
It seems like it would be like you put a lot of stress on the thighs. Like, I always notice like cellists are like really kind of moving their legs around.
Oh, I mean, cellist man spread like a motherfucker.
I mean, the man spread, it just kind of rests there. I mean, you have a peg that's going into the, onto the floor.
Yeah.
So that most of the weight, I think, is kind of pushing into the floor. I don't know. It's been a while since I played the cello. But yeah, I played the cello for a while. And then I switched because I switched to the upright bass. So I played violin, cello, and bass.
Damn.
All right, we got to talk after the show.
Yeah. The reason I switched to upright bass was because the cello was too like squeaky when I played it, and I thought going to an instrument with a lower register would make it more palatable on the ears. Doesn't work that way. If you're shitty at playing cello, you're going to be shitty at playing bass.
Oh, so you're shitty. Okay, because I was going to say, I'm in the process of making a DIY record, and I want some cello on it.
No, I mean,
you're not the guy?
No, my siblings' place probably would be better at that than I would be. My sister kept up with violin for a while after school. So
could you do that, like the screechy sound from the orchestral version of "I Got Five on It" from Us, or it's like
I could make screechy sounds on a cello all day.
Could you play that?
Maybe. No, I forgot. Because the thing is, I forgot all the finger placements. And if you're a noob when you start playing the cello, you put tape down on your fingerboard.
I was wondering about that. Like fretless bass. I'm like, how do you know? I mean, I would have a sense from having played guitar and bass for years of where my fingers should be, but how do you know you're hitting just the right note? You probably have to have a better ear than a guitarist would.
Maybe.
To do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But yeah, you start with tape so you know where to put your fingers. Okay. And then if you're a badass, eventually you'll take the tape off and you'll just know.
So by the time you played the perfection, the tape was clearly off.
Yeah. By the time I played, no, I didn't play. But like, no, I did get like, because I was like falling behind the class, I did get like sent into like the closet to like practice by myself. And
the closet?
Yeah, there was a closet.
Wow.
So I'd go in the closet.
Were there lights?
And yeah, but it was an isolating experience. So I would play by myself, but like I would be lazy and I'd be like, I really just don't want to play this. It hurts my ears to hear myself play. So I'd like not play, and then like the teacher would come back through the door and I'd start playing again. So she thought I was practicing.
So band instructors, music teachers, conductors are fucking psychopaths if the movies have anything to say about it. And your life experience.
Well, look, I'm not going to call anyone a psychopath. Here's what I'll say.
Except Eli Roth.
I did ask a band director, a renowned high school band director, about the movie Whiplash.
Whiplash is a movie we're going to talk. The wickedly talented,
shockingly vile.
Whiplash is a movie that we are definitely going to be talking about today.
Yes, it is.
Let's hear it.
And the band director was kind of appalled by that movie, and he said that doesn't happen today. There's no abuse anymore. But like,
but there was, and it was rampant.
There was apparently when he was in school. So maybe like 40 years ago, this was a thing. But I don't know. I will say that even the chill band directors and stuff that I've come across, they are cut from a cloth of rigor and discipline. And
it's like the military. I don't understand. It's music. It's one of the deepest expressions, purest expressions of the soul. Why so much hate? Why so much abuse?
I'm not going to say there's abuse going on.
It's like the fucking Catholic Church.
Yeah.
if Sam, our occasional guest, what do we call that? A guest? Not a guest host.
She's a guest. She's a guest.
As our occasional guest star, Sam would tell us, like, Sam is a music person. I think she went to school for music.
A musician, you might call her.
You might call her a musician, yeah. You might call her a vocalist.
The wickedly talented
Sam Dazim. But she was pissed about Whiplash. She was like, it's not like that. Yeah. And any music person I've talked to has been like, it's not like that.
Jim DeRogatis on Sound Opinions, that somehow that movie came, I think they did like an episode about the movies around the time the movie came out, and he was pissed because he's a drummer and also an American hero because he's taken R. Kelly down. But he was infuriated about that movie because he's like, this is not what it's like. Like, we're gonna like raise a whole, because movies do have an impact on our culture. He's like, we're gonna raise a whole like generation of kids who think that they have to like beat themselves to death to be able to play an instrument.
No, but
that's expected of them.
To do anything at that highest level requires, I think, the kind of sacrifice you see in Whiplash, and maybe the kind of crazy.
Are you kidding me? Are you advocating for?
No, I'm not. I'm
J.K.
saying
Simmons.
Behavior? No, I'm not. I'm
talking about J.K. Simmons, the man, not the character in the film. He's an awful.
Well, for me, Whiplash isn't about being screamed at as much as going crazy and having that level of commitment personally, intrinsically.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a Buddhist. I can see reaching that level of perfection and being perfectly calm.
You're a Buddhist?
Yeah.
had no idea.
I mean, I don't shout about it, but if I have to identify with any kind of, sort of religion, then yeah.
We'll
And
talk
I can
about that later.
I can
no
see
idea.
reaching that level of perfection while still being calm. I don't think you have to like pummel yourself and like, try to immediately recover from a car accident to get to your recital.
Of course. No.
See, I just disagree with that idea that like Whiplash has some responsibility to accurately depicting the music conservatory experience, though. Like, I mean, so many movies heighten the real world in different ways.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I don't.
Rocky is not an accurate boxing movie.
No.
Yeah, but boxers who like kids who want to be boxers who like religiously watch Rocky and think that like that's
It's probably good for them.
maybe, I don't know. It's an inspiring movie.
I mean, if you want to see a depiction of the real world, watch a documentary, and it's still going to be fucking biased because there's a director.
Yeah, but I'm talking about kids. I was in
Spinning
band,
it.
and I can imagine like a band kid, like 12-year-old me watching Whiplash and being like, "Oh wow, that's what I got to put myself through. Like that looks cool. Like I want to live that journey." And like feeling like if something like that were to happen to me, that like that's expected.
But does that mean Damien Chazelle had like some responsibility to not make that movie?
No,
for,
no,
like,
no.
a
I'm not
generation
saying
of
that.
band
I just think it's a really. Wow, we're going there, guys. Welcome to our episode about Whiplash.
I don't know. I don't know if Whiplash actually condones that approach to musicianship.
It doesn't, but it's one of those movies like in the same way that like you could argue that like Pulp Fiction condones violence, which is absurd, right? But like teenagers take it really seriously, and they think it's cool.
Well, that's why we rate it R. No one under 17 admitted without parent or guardian.
Yeah, and that's a bulletproof policy.
MPAA.
All right. So here's what we're talking about.
So
cellos.
let's talk about a film that doesn't condone that approach at all.
Is it rated? This movie?
I don't think it is.
Are Netflix? Oh, I think they're rated for TV. Actually,
Yeah, I think it's
That's
TV
right.
MA.
I think
Oh,
I think it's MA. Yeah,
It's MA
gotta
as
be.
fuck.
It's MA as fuck.
Yeah.
So the movie's The Perfection. In this movie, we have a woman named Charlotte, played by Allison Williams, who you'll all remember from her breakout role in Get Out as Where Are the Keys, Rose?
Well, really, her breakout role was in Girls, but yeah.
Sure, but her breakout, yeah.
I've
fine.
never seen Girls.
I won't split hairs about that.
I mean, that was where she. I mean, really, her breakout role was being born Brian Williams' daughter.
I wasn't
Let's be
gonna.
real.
I wasn't
what?
gonna say it.
She's Brian Williams' daughter. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, actually, that's unnecessarily snide. She is a very talented person on her own, but I'm sure being Brian Williams' daughter has not hurt her career.
Wait, who's Brian Williams? When you said Brian Williams, I heard Brian Wilson. I was like,
no,
what?
Brian Williams, like
NBC Nightly
anchor.
News.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Got it.
Anyway, so she's
Not as impressive.
She is a former child prodigy cellist who left the game because her mother fell ill, and now 10 years later, she is trying to reconnect with her old conservatory, and she meets sort of her replacement at the conservatory, another young prodigy cellist.
Yeah, in Shanghai, they both are judges for this sort of competition. They're offering a scholarship to these young, like basically the next young potential prodigy to come to the conservatory.
So they meet at a recital, and they have some shared experiences about cello, playing the cello, and sort of their experiences at the school. And honestly, that's all we can fucking say about it before we go to the spoiler round.
It immediately goes bananas from there.
It goes
Is that as far as
bananas.
we're going?
That's as far as you can go.
I don't know how much farther we can go.
All right.
Because
I'm not going to argue.
Yeah, I mean, we can say that a man drops his glass in the atrium of where this recital is and has a nosebleed and starts puking very yellow vomit, and that's kind of portentous.
it's a
for
bad
what
omen.
comes.
It's a bad omen.
It's a bad omen, and then like from that moment on, wow, we're on a wild ride.
It's a movie that doglegs several times. And honestly, I
Wait, dogleg? Can you explain that to me?
it's
like
going,
a wizard's
it's going
hand.
one way and it goes boom another way.
Yeah, and sometimes
Snake's
it goes
hand?
backwards.
It goes
Snake's hand.
backwards.
Wizard's hand.
hand.
You said it again.
Yeah, it's very hard to talk about this movie. So that's why I feel like we're doing our listeners a disservice, but hopefully most of them have watched this movie or don't plan to, so they can follow us down the spoiler room where we'll actually talk about it. I guess we just got to review it.
You got to review it.
This is wild.
We've
never done this
We've never
before.
done this before.
Wow.
But you know what? We've filled like the time that we usually fill before we get to the review,
we
just by
talked
talking about other
for-
shit, which was fun.
We talked about
enjoyed that.
Whiplash for like
We
45
We gave
minutes.
our
other in
listeners their
weeks.
money's worth talking about random
Yeah.
bullshit.
Yeah, if you want to go watch the movie, you already got, a normal sized dose of Amon pre-spoiler room.
Okay, I will surprise myself by giving this movie a cue it.
Whoa, okay.
I thought I was going to give it a screw it. I texted Patrick towards the end of this movie and I said, this movie is abhorrent. Would I still use that word? Probably. It's a very well-made movie. It is a thrill ride. It will keep your attention. I would say it's almost a great movie, but it veers into it. Again, the dog legs we're talking about make it very kind of, I don't want to say tonally inconsistent because that's not true, but just
That term never applies to anything, I'm learning. It doesn't make any sense.
I feel like we should just ban that term.
Let's
in
ban that
general.
It means
term.
nothing.
Let's
It's
ban
done.
that term.
We're
It's a
not
bullshit
saying
The
term.
rule
totally
is totally
inconsistent
inconsistent,
anymore.
but it's also just inconsistent across the board.
Yeah, it really kind of keeps you on a yo-yo, and it kind of kept me at an arm's length from really getting emotionally invested in the movie. And then
a dog leg's length, you might say.
And then it makes some just really crass, in my opinion, and unnecessary decisions late in the movie that we'll talk about in the spoiler realm. I'll give it a cue it. I mean, it's definitely gonna hold your attention, but I don't like what they did. Who wants to go next?
Can I go next?
Yes.
Can I surprise you all?
Yes.
I did not like this motion picture, but I'm going to give it a view it.
Wow.
Yes.
It is a breezy, trashy ride. So this has a common denominator with Single White Female, another kind of
I haven't seen that. I need to see that.
fun, artfully made but trashy movie that also stars Steven Weber. And
The poor man's Richard E. Grant, we decided.
Patrick told me that earlier. I can see it. I can see it. Don't give Steven Weber that much credit though. It is just I didn't like it the first time through, but I was wrapped the entire time I was watching it. I watched it again today, and somehow I had even more fun with it, even though I find it reprehensible. There's really not a lot I can say without spoiling it.
It's hard.
But man, just watch it. It's wild. It's going to throw you for a loop every 20 minutes or so. I mean, it's Whiplash for perverts. If that sounds appealing to you, then definitely watch it immediately.
I don't know about that. Let me interject real quick before Patrick gives his rating, because I think one of my problems, I make a big deal about how I don't watch trailers. I try not to expose myself to anything about these movies before I see them. I think that worked to my detriment here, because I went in expecting a Whiplash or a Black Swan or something that was more subtle and like more.
Black Swan is not subtle, but
That's what I said to him.
Okay. It's been a while since I saw
I
it.
love that movie, but it is equally trashy.
But I was ready to see like
I don't know about that, but it's trashy.
I was ready to see like a taut thriller about the
As taut as a cello string.
psychological trauma of being in music performance, and I wanted to see just like a good suspense of psychological thriller movie.
Well, yeah, you messaged me and you were like, do we know anyone who's a cello player who can like speak to cello performance and like how realistic it is in this film? And I'm like, that's not what it's about.
Not important at all. So I think it was maybe a bait and switch for me, and that's one of the reasons I didn't like it so much, or I was kind of like just repulsed by it as much as I was, because it really doesn't. No, it's not a movie that deals in subtlety at all, and it's not really concerned with the psychological thriller aspects.
So I actually did see the trailer before I watched it, and the trailer reveals to some degree sort of the first big twist, which we've actually refrained from describing here in our little summary so far. So we've actually given away less than the trailer does. So I think I was prepared. I mean, I wouldn't have even known it was about cello to begin with if I hadn't watched the trailer.
Oh, really?
No.
Like none of the key artwork or anything gave that away for you?
I don't know if I even saw key artwork. I just saw like at some point like, oh, the perfection. People are talking about it. It's a twisty movie. Allison Williams is in it. Actually, I don't even know if I realized cello was in it because of the trailer. I probably forgot about that part. I just noticed certain unforgettable elements in the trailer that we haven't discussed. So we're not going to discuss that.
Patrick, what did you think?
This is an unqualified view it for me. View it with prejudice. One of my favorite things I've seen so far this year. One of my best viewing experiences with anything so far this year.
What about in your Netflix journey?
Like in the Amon journey?
Yeah.
It's way up there. I mean, it's no 1920. Fear Strikes Again. It's no Jay. But it's sad, actually, that Allison with a Y couldn't be here with us tonight because she and I watched it together and we freaked the fuck out afterwards. We were like Key and Peele in that Bruce Willis sketch where they're just running back and forth in front of the hotel, freaking out about Bruce Willis. Literally, after the movie, we were just pacing around the house like, holy fuck, that was insane. What did we just watch? That was nuts.
Oh,
and
man.
it was great.
I envy your reaction.
I had a great time with it. Second time around, I mean, it's the kind of thing that takes you by shock and surprise the first time. And I have watched it twice now. I watched it a second time once Chris picked it for Wheel of Death. And it wasn't quite as much fun the second time around. But that first time viewing experience, if you haven't seen it, blast. We're going to get into it a little further on, but I don't think it's giving too much away to say there's themes of sexual abuse. And if, that's a trigger for you, don't fuck with this movie. Unqualified view it for me.
Damn. Two view it's and a cue it.
Two view it's and a cue it.
A cue it that sounded kind of like a screw it, though. Sounded like you were
If
on the
I knew
fence.
you both were going to give it view it's, maybe I would screw it just to weight it down. Something about the Netflix format, I think, lends itself to movies that are more fun on a first watch than they are watching it again. I mean, because it's such a disposable product, So if you're a Netflix
There's something
original
to be said
movie,
for that. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I haven't come to a conclusion, but I'm seeing a lot of common threads in these Netflix original films.
like, are there a lot of people who are watching Bird Box more than once?
God, I hope not. That's really sad for me to think about.
All right, well, we're going to go down the spoiler round. We'll fill you in on all the things we couldn't talk about just now and talk a little bit more about what we thought about it. So go watch the movie yourself or follow us down there. See you soon. All right, we're back in the spoiler room, ready to discuss The Perfection.
The acoustics are great down here tonight.
The acoustics.
Thanks, Greg.
The acoustics.
It's the most acoustically perfect room I've ever been in.
It is. Give me an A flat. Amazing.
Oh,
I don't know what note that was, but
it sounded like an A flat, maybe A sharp.
All right. So, like I said, you know what? I'm just gonna give a spiel. I'm just gonna give
a spiel.
I'm just gonna give the whole fucking plot summary, which I wrote this afternoon as I
I'm
watched
so curious
this
to
movie
hear
my
how
second
you
time.
condense this into a plot summary.
I did my best. Hopefully, it's not too long.
Okay.
Here we go. So, like we said,
This is your book report.
yes. So, Charlotte, like we said, Allison Williams, was a child prodigy at an exclusive cello conservatory who was forced to leave when her mother became ill 10 years ago. Now, the mother has died, and Charlotte, she travels to Shanghai to reunite with her mentor, Backoff, played by Steven Weber, the poor man's Richard E. Grant, and she meets his new protege, Lizzie, played by Logan Browning of Dear White People fame. Lizzie and Allison are drawn to each other by their shared history, as well as a sexual tension that culminates in the two sleeping together. The next morning, the two set off for a vacation across China, even though Lizzie is suffering from an apparent hangover. She becomes violently ill on a bus trip and appears to be infested with insect larvae. Once insects begin to hatch from inside Lizzie's hand, Allison gives Lizzie a meat cleaver, and Lizzie cuts off her own hand. At this point, the film rewinds, like literally rewinds a la...
Oh, we're going to get into that tactic.
A la Funny Games, if you've ever seen that one.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And the audience learns that
It's a good
Allison
comparison.
previously drugged Lizzie with a hallucinogen and was conspiring all day to trick Lizzie into cutting off her hand. 3 weeks later, Backoff's conservatory in Boston welcomes a new child student recruited from the Shanghai recital. Lizzie attempts to return to the conservatory but is turned away by Backoff and his wife, Palmera. Lizzie invades Charlotte's house and abducts her, bringing her back to the conservatory to face Backoff. At this point, it is revealed to the audience that Backoff's method of instructing his students has always involved physical rape, not just by himself, but by his teaching underlings, Jeffrey and Theus.
Oh, Theus.
Charlotte is taken to a room called the Chapel, where she had performed and was raped as a child. She is forced to play a cello piece and warned that if she does not achieve quote-unquote perfection, the titular perfection, Backoff will rape the new student in her stead. Charlotte makes a mistake during her performance, but it turns out Backoff was bluffing. Jeffrey, Theus, and Lizzie prepare to rape Charlotte, but Jeffrey and Theus fall dead, apparently poisoned by Lizzie. The film rewinds again, and the audience learns that Lizzie and Charlotte have been in cahoots since Lizzie abducted Charlotte. Apparently, Backoff's rejection of Lizzie at the conservatory convinced Lizzie of his abusive nature, something Charlotte tried to communicate back in China after Lizzie cut off her hand, which was Charlotte's strategy to quote-unquote save Lizzie and free her of Backoff's brainwashing. Lizzie and Charlotte kill Palmera and savagely attack Backoff, although he maims one of Charlotte's arms in the fight. The film ends with Lizzie and Charlotte playing a single cello together using their good arms, while a horribly disfigured Backoff sits in the audience listening with no legs, no arms, no eyes, no mouth, and a feeding tube. The end.
I have no mouth and I must scream. Yeah, that was a pretty well...
That was an exhaustive
It's an exhaustive
synopsis.
movie. I mean, there's a lot happening.
I went over that synopsis several times trying to figure out how to pare it down, and we need to know all the information.
There were I have very complicated feelings about this, and I don't want to risk sounding insensitive, but like, I don't understand why Charlotte had to do what she did without trying something else first.
Cutting off the hand.
I get that there's deep brainwashing involved. I don't understand why there wasn't even a cursory discussion with Lizzie ahead of time. Like, I don't understand why she didn't try to feel the situation out and try to gauge whether or not Lizzie knew what she was in for.
There is a brief conversation where Charlotte asks Lizzie if she would ever leave Backoff, and she's like, "No, of course not. I love it there." And I guess that's good enough for Charlotte. I think character development and the character motivations are weak throughout this entire movie. I don't think it's a movie that really concerns itself with that stuff.
Well, given the crimes that Backoff has perpetrated, like, I feel like, again, this is where it gets really hard for me because I know like what's going on in our culture right now with like the Me Too movement. I feel like it would be very easy for him to be outed as the monster that he is, but maybe not. I don't know.
But then we wouldn't get to have girls cutting a guy and beating him with a fire poker and putting a knife in people's backs.
And we wouldn't see those same girls making out. And yeah, this is a prurient, gross, trashy movie. And I guess I like that it takes the shortcuts it takes because I haven't seen a movie like this since like Paul Verhoeven was in his prime in the early 90s.
Yeah, Verhoeven is the closest parallel for me on this movie. It's not about realism. It's about a twisty thriller that ends up having this feminist revenge narrative.
But you've seen Elle, right?
Yes.
I like that is a movie that also is incredibly twisty. It is a kind of it is a very feminist film in its own weird, fucked up way. I feel like that's a very mature work though, that like skirts the line between pulp and art.
Yeah.
I wish this movie had more of that sensibility. I wish it were just a little bit more mature in trying to do what it sets out to. Which ultimately I love. Like I love seeing like it feels kind of like Death Proof in the end, you know, like where these women just like against all odds totally destroy the man that tried to destroy them. There's kind of like a gleeful emotional catharsis in the end.
So I texted Patrick during the conclusion of this movie, and I said, this movie is abhorrent.
Yeah, and I'm curious, was there a particular moment or like a thing in particular that made you say that?
Now, here's the thing. I don't want to play woke police when we're talking about horror movies because I think there's a place in horror movies and exploitation movies to go there and
it's fantasy
and just deliver the most over-the-top circumstances that involve rape or whatever else and do whatever they want. So keeping that in mind, though, and again, this may be because of my preconceptions about this movie, I felt like all the rape stuff was so unnecessary that it was just there. I don't want to say in the prurient interest, but we don't need all that. We don't need a woman like writhing in a chair screaming, saying, no, please don't rape this 10-year-old kid in front of us.
Right, that went way over the line, and the fact that I'm glad that Steven Weber's character was bluffing in that moment, but I felt like you're putting I don't want to sound like Siskel and Ebert in the early '80s right now, but like that was one of the few moments that I've seen in a film in my life where I actually felt like repulsed by child endangerment.
So I didn't necessarily read it that way. He's just threatening the child in general. I never read necessarily, I'm going to rape the kid in front of you.
No,
but he keeps saying, you know what happens next. So we understand, I understood that like he's going to rape the girl.
No, he's explicitly going to rape the girl. Whether or not she has to watch it is a separate conversation, but
it could have, like when she went to bed, I was like, oh my God, are they just going to go rape her off screen?
No. Yeah. No, that was explicitly in the text of the movie. But my problem...
Well, I perceived it differently, and I might have perceived the movie overall differently if I had seen it the same way you did, but I didn't read that.
Well, we learn the rules. I mean, we learn them after the fact. So the rules of the perfection, but like it's very clear what happens. If you make a mistake, you get raped. And when you look back at that scene, and that was one thing that was confirmed for me watching it again today, is that he was going to do what he would have done to Charlotte to that girl.
Yeah, there's a line where she's like, no, she's just a child. She just got here, do it to me, do it to me.
And what he's going to do is very clear.
Yes.
But after the fact, after that happens, then you see that there's supposed to be a rape. Theus and Jeffrey come in. They're going to rape Charlotte.
But we already know. I mean, we see Charlotte as a child, and we know that she was raped. How is that different from the new girl being threatened in the scene when Charlotte is grown up?
It's not. I think it's all pretty horrid.
It's all horrid, but like this girl is even younger than Charlotte was. And she's like 10 or something.
I think it's just also unnecessary because like we know that they came up in an abusive, fucked up, brainwashing institution, and that their minds have been shattered. We know that Allison Williams' character Charlotte has spent time in mental hospitals trying to recover from it. Like this man Backoff has broken their minds with abuse. I don't know why they needed to take it to the next level and say, oh, well, by the way, he's also a rapist, other than to make it more excusable when the two women torture him at the end of the film.
Which I also felt was over the top, but I want to say that like...
Over the top in the best way to me.
But I like what Chris is saying in that, like, to have one, you have to have the other. You have to have him commit horrible atrocities on screen for that to pay off. And that's where I find this film to be prurient and trashy. The kind of abuse that this film trucks in is so horrific that even the suggestion of it is enough. And the fact that it goes so far to make you think about it, to almost see it, it's too far for me.
So frankly. I don't understand. You're saying you wanted to see like what child rape on screen to justify the mutilation at the end?
No, I'm saying the mutilation at the end is absurd and way over the top. But I'm saying this film goes too far to make you think about what precipitates that. Like just a suggestion of a child abuser and his performance is creepy enough. But like to make you like look at a little girl in a room in the chapel and think about the possibility of her being raped by these three intimidating men is that was too much.
I think to Steve's
really that is so interesting.
To Steve's point, when Charlotte is talking to Backoff when she's brought back to the conservatory and she's explaining some of her motivations about why she did what she did to Lizzie. She says, oh, I saw Lizzie had the tattoo. I knew she played in the chapel. Mm-hmm. I knew what she had to do to get that tattoo. For me, the way she said that implied maybe there was sexual abuse going on here.
Yeah, I got that too. I was like, I knew what you had to do to get I get it.
And that was enough for me. It was enough for me to say that these people are in a I think the whole like stage parents performance child thing is very upsetting and often abusive in kind of an insidious way. For me, it's enough to say, okay, these kids were just being exploited in this music program and they were being abused, certainly verbally, emotionally, possibly physically, maybe sexually. That's good enough for me. I don't need this dog and pony show where people are getting raped in front of my eyes.
No one got raped in front of your eyes.
No,
one did, but
there is a woman shackled to a chair with her legs being spread,
About to get
screaming
wristed.
with two beefy dudes, with their hands on her.
It comes so close to something that is so, like, that I don't need to see on screen in the first place. I mean, like, some of that stuff was almost as upsetting to me as, like, Irreversible, that 20-minute rape scene.
Really?
Yeah, really.
And it wasn't in service.
Even though it's a trashy B movie, like, there were times where I was like, God, this is gonna upset some people. Because at first glance, I would think this is just sort of a harmless B movie. But really, I think for, like, survivors of abuse, this would be deeply unsettling.
I'm sure, yeah.
Because it comes so close. I mean, there's like these pounding sort of flashbacks to, like, Steven Weber naked walking toward Charlotte throughout the film.
I think that's the most traumatizing image.
Yeah, me
for
too.
sure. I'm going to think of that image forever. So credit to the movie, I guess. But I just thought it was playing fast and loose with this stuff and not in the service of really a feminist objective or anything like that. Just because some women stab a guy to death at the end of the movie, I don't think makes it a feminist film. Like,
no, it's totally reckless across the board. I don't think there's a statement to be made here.
Yeah, I don't think it was. For me, here's an example of why I think this movie kind of lacked some humanity, which is one of my favorite criticisms, of course. When young Charlotte is being abused, we have the recurring motif where she looks at the sunlight trickling under the door in the corner and has a fantasy of escaping the conservatory and running through the garden away from this place, right? That is later cut in later as she's, like, stabbing the guy or, they're fighting the guy. And this is kind of her catharsis. I think a much better final shot for this movie would be these two women taking this 10-year-old girl who we've seen dangled in front of us as, like, this girl's going to get raped. And they're leaving together through the garden.
I love that. I love that so much because that makes me realize, like, how fucking stupid the end of this movie is.
But then we wouldn't get the, grindhouse, ultra violent, oh, look how edgy and fucked up this is. We cut a guy's arms and legs off.
Clive Barker, to reference somebody that we briefly saw in person looking very decrepit. It's a gross ending for a movie that deals in, like child sexual abuse. That ending is absurd to me. Like, you would think that the ultimate catharsis for these women would be to escape the Backoff Academy, not to prove that they can do what was expected of them by this person who was going to rape them if they didn't do what he expected them to do.
Or at least come back to that little girl. Come back to the little girl.
Where is she?
She may be starving to death in the upstairs bedroom, and we don't care.
Why would she be? They killed off all the fuckers.
Yeah, but
like, I want to see
over,
but like she was put in a moment.
Obviously, they're leaving with her.
She was placed in a moment of, like, terrifying peril, unbeknownst to her. I think a better ending. You're totally right. It would have been to see that girl escape. It might have felt saccharine because this is a bad movie that I also gave a view it to.
You would have bitched about it for being too on the nose.
But I would give it a view regardless. But, like, I want to see. So while it's, like, fun and I keep saying trashy.
It's trashy as fuck.
At some point, I'm going to have to explain what I mean by that, probably. But, like, it's trashy as fuck, but at some point...
It is lurid. It is... Sure, it's prurient. Absolutely. And that's why I compare it to Verhoeven.
I have a problem.
Which is not like a... I mean, let's
and
not...
that is not a criticism.
It's not a gold standard.
I enjoy
like,
trashy.
Verhoeven is not a gold standard.
I love Verhoeven.
For this kind of
Verhoeven
movie,
is the
it
gold standard of trashy.
I can't see Verhoeven making this movie.
I could see, like, Abel Ferrara.
Wait, you said you couldn't see
No,
it?
I can't see him making this movie. This movie doesn't work for me as, like, a satire. I think
it's not a satire.
Sex and
it's
violence
not that smart.
are too dumb. I don't know.
There's some really funny moments in this movie, though. Like, whole scene...
wait, hold on. Here's how I want to change the ending. Because we're talking about the ending.
Yeah.
Here's how I want to change the ending. I want to hear them playing at the end, and I really wanted them to just be playing shitty as fuck. Just
like, laughing about it.
Well, not laughing about it, but just,
shitting
like,
on the bus.
intentionally playing poorly just to fuck with that guy. That's what I wanted to hear. And maybe they are. Who knows?
Like this guy's.
But we can't hear. We can't
Who knows?
hear.
But I also didn't hear
her
mistake in the perfection. I mean, like
and that's an interesting
That
moment.
was great.
Yeah.
That whole sequence. Now again,
Chris
she probably
drew my attention to that. I didn't realize there's kind of an interesting little camera effect when she fucks up, and it's not, you don't, like, the untrained ear does not notice that she musically fucks up. But
well, it's
like,
such a weird
you
piece
see,
too, and I'm not accustomed to that kind of music on a regular basis,
but
so
you
I didn't know what to
see
hear.
it in Steven Weber's performance and the little like shaky effect that they put on that shot.
Technically, that whole sequence is great. I think it's very effective filmmaking. I just thought it was
Beautiful. It's suspenseful. It's gorgeous looking. It's a great location.
Yeah. I just don't like the intention. The whole thing where she messes up the note and we can't even tell, but the camera shakes a little bit and you see everyone responding to it. And then she finishes her performance and we know it's bad news, but the little girl who's just got there and is naive starts clapping.
Oh, I love that moment too, where she's clapping, but like you know, based on his look, they're like, yeah, she fucked up.
Yeah, it's all.
I didn't hear her fuck up, but she fucked up.
It's all great filmmaking for what they're trying to do. I just have a problem with what they're trying to do. And again, if it's good enough to bring the girl out and taunt us with her for that whole sequence, go back and show us what the fuck happens to the girl. But at the end of the movie.
Yeah, just the way that that girl is discarded, it didn't bother me until we started talking about it, but that is pretty fucked up.
So can we talk though about the genre twist? Like, I mean, it's ostensibly a body horror film for like the first half hour.
Yeah.
Yes.
/ like sort of trashy lesbian romance stalker thing. Like there's another
it's very single white female, like in the beginning, which Steven Weber also stars in,
and then it becomes kind of like a psychological thriller where Charlotte is like, you know, potentially stalking or gaslighting
It's
Lizzie.
like a revenge movie, yeah.
Well, then
Rape
it
revenge.
becomes, I would say it becomes a revenge movie in the final like third when you finally figure out what the fuck is going on. I mean, that in and of itself is and I mean, I tire a little bit of praising movies for mixing up genres, but this one is wild in the way that it completely leads you to think something entirely different is going on. And then, I mean, you know, obviously it's bullshit. Like, is it really that reliable that you're going to feed her these pills and she's going to hallucinate strongly enough in combination with alcohol to have the desired effect? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But
I like watching it a second time. It's really fun to see her, like, it's very clear that like nobody else is seeing the bugs. Charlotte is suggesting that, so she sees it.
Yeah.
That was fun for me.
That's fine. And that's an effective sequence. And that sequence
That's a
on the
great
bus.
sequence.
It's ridiculous though, because like it's
I mean, it's so claustrophobic.
It's so, like, I laughed out loud so many times during this sequence today. Well, actually, the first time in watching it again, just the fact that, like, a woman is just screaming, I'm gonna shit my pants, I can't move, or I'm gonna shit. Like, the number of times that she says shit is hilarious.
I mean, Chris and I have been on a couple of inhospitable buses in foreign
I thought
countries.
of you guys and wondered if that would
I've
happen.
had this experience.
This is very real. Yeah, actually, you've had specifically the gastrointestinal experience.
But just like her just saying, like, I can't move, or I'm gonna fucking shit my pants.
Chris lived that.
We're going to take a little
was so
tangent.
over the top.
Let me tell you a story.
We're gonna take a wizard's hand here.
This is a story. This is a story I don't tell many people. I was on.
But now you're going
about
to
to
tell the
thousands,
world.
millions.
You're
You're going
maybe.
to tell our 3 Australian listeners.
So I was on a bus in the Philippines. How I got the stomach bug, we'll never know. But I was on this bus.
Pills.
I was maybe, right before, as we were waiting for this bus to arrive, I started to get what I call the mud.
Yeah.
You know when you got the mud.
Yeah.
And so I went to a little,
Do you have your mud flaps on?
I went to a little
Ew.
outhouse and I tried to purge what I could. And then the bus arrived and I ended up on this bus. It was a 3-hour bus ride, I think. I think it was 3 hours, but that seems like too long, but I don't know. Anyway, but we're on this bus.
When you got the mud, man, it feels like an eternity.
I got the bus and I got the mud. And for a while, I'm just holding it. I'm holding it as best I can. And I have friends with me and we're like, oh, what are we going to do tomorrow and stuff? And I'm just like, I got the 1,000-yard stare. I'm only thinking about one thing, which is not shitting my pants on this bus.
not just filling that bus with mud.
I made it about an hour and a half.
Not creating a mud slide, one might say.
I was about to go there.
Now, if you've had the mud, you know an hour and a half is an awfully long period of time. I should get a medal for that. And then I'm like, okay, I need to get off this fucking bus. I was having the exact experience as Lizzie. And so I tell my friends, I'm like, look, I gotta get off this bus. I see that there's like we're entering most of this whole bus. It's like one road up the coast of this island in the Philippines. I see a city center up ahead. So I walk to the front of the bus and I'm like, stop here. Let me out. Let me out. I tell my friends, get my stuff. We're getting off here. I say, let me off here. The bus driver's like, oh, can't let you off here. It's a roundabout or like something. I'm like, God damn it. Have to go back to my seat. But then just the act of getting up and moving kind of like, I think, rearranged the furniture and I was okay. I didn't have to shit anymore. Go back to the back of the bus. It starts coming back with a vengeance, and I'm sweating.
And did you start like playing a game with your
I was doing
like,
anything I
composers?
could. Yes, yeah. I was doing anything I could to get my mind off the situation. So then finally, I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta get off this bus. So finally, like the next stretch, I'm off the fucking bus. Everyone gets our shit. We get off the bus. I see a 7-Eleven. Thank God for 7-Eleven.
Let me just say, I've heard this story multiple times, and this is the most anxiety-inducing rendition yet.
Thank you. I see a 7-Eleven, the green glow. I'm like, perfect, because it's like you get off the bus. That's problem one. I'm like, all right, I'll shit like behind a wall if I have to, but I want to find a toilet. 7-Eleven. I'm like, great. We go in. We're like, can we use your bathroom? I go straight to the back. I see the bathroom door. I tug on the bathroom door, and it like comes off in my hands. And then I realize that the bathroom's actually to my left with no door. The door has been taken off of it and is in front of me.
You're like just like so dazed at this point that you don't realize it's a door that is not
I'm
on a
hallucinating.
hinge. Yeah.
Well, it looks like it's a door, but you pull on it and it's just a loose door. And
Chris, are those fucking bugs?
so I look to my left and there's a toilet, but like this bathroom's clearly out of order. There's a mop bucket in the middle of the floor. It's a small, it's as big as, this space here.
Dude, I would just shit in the mop bucket at that point.
It's got a mop bucket, and every surface, including the toilet in this bathroom, is covered with this like grayish, watery film. And I'm like, fuck it, we're doing it. And so I go in there, I sit down, my friends, God bless their hearts, take the loose door and like hold it over the actual door space to give me privacy.
Loose door.
And so that's how we got out of that situation. But since then, I am not precious at all about where I go to the bathroom.
And this is why you have only one hand now.
Yeah, this is why I only have one hand, and this is why I used to be the guy who like goes in, like tears the tissue paper and puts it on the toilet seat. I'm not that guy anymore. I survived that. I can survive anything. Bring it on.
That's beautiful.
No privacy.
What a redeeming story.
hygiene.
Unlike the perfection.
Yeah,
to bring us back.
So that's my horrible Philippines bus ride story. Very similar. I kind of went back there when I watched this movie.
So this scene felt very authentic to you, you're saying?
Oh yeah. And really terrifying. And at this point of the movie, I didn't know. I was like, are we watching a zombie movie?
I had no idea.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Like, they got out of the fucking bus, which it takes an absurd amount of time. I don't understand this bus driver, what his deal is.
Dude, that's real. That's true to life. You say, stop the bus, and the bus driver shouts back at you, and you're like, I can't go. Oh, okay. That's what happened to me on the roundabout.
Yeah, I remember when we were in Panama on the infamous, what we ended up dubbing the fridge bus.
Oh, my
it was
fucking
just
God.
very cold on that bus. I mean, Chris found it colder than I did, but I found it so cold that I like couldn't sleep. It was a night bus, and
that was the worst experience of my life.
I mean, we're in the tropics, like you want to be in a cold space, but it was too cold, and it's just you don't have a choice. You're in this confined space with other people who don't speak the same language as you, and you are just subject to the whims of whatever happens for several hours.
Bus travel is fucked. That ride, I get anxiety thinking about that ride. That was awful.
Right, because we don't really have, well, I mean, there's Greyhound and whatever here, Megabus, but it's not as common a form of travel as it is in a lot of other countries. And it's just when you get into those countries where you actually have to travel hours on a bus to get somewhere, it's a weird experience. And I think this movie captured that really well. And the horror that could potentially arise from having an illness in that scenario.
Set the whole movie on the bus. Better movie.
Oh, get the fuck out. Great sequence. But
and where does the girl come in? During that scene, one, I found it very laughable. I felt the actor. Who's the actress who plays Lizzie?
Logan Browning.
I found her to be pretty terrible in this movie.
What?
Oh no, I think she's better than Allison
she had some of the most outrageous laugh lines for me.
Well, the most hilarious line she has when she tases and beats the shit out of Allison Williams. I wrote down her line, which is, "Fuck you, crazy bitch. Fuck you, fuck bitch."
Yeah.
Amazing.
This time because I was working out today because also terrible.
Were you? You look good.
Thank you. Terrible movie to watch with a hangover, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Terrible movie.
Yeah.
Like I did not feel physically ill until I started watching this, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm getting on this new rowing machine. Thanks, Mom.
Drink a couple of little airport liquor bottles and a couple
take some ibuprofen.
Ibuprofen.
quote,
air quotes.
No, I found her to be absolutely ridiculous. But like when Backoff asked her, why would, referring to Charlotte, why would she do this? Because she's a crazy fucking bitch. Like the way that she delivers that line is so out of control.
So at that point,
I loved her performance. I thought she manages to convey all the different kind of things you think her character is, and yet they all make sense in the larger picture of things, whether she's like sort of the lesbian femme fatale or the pissed off victim of this forced dismemberment or the sort of righteous revenge seeker at the end. Like she is a badass presence, and she plays all those three elements of the character really well, and in a way that does hang together if you go back and watch it and know the true nature of her character and what her character is going through.
Well, that's fair. I did feel that way about Get Out. That's what I'm going to call her from here on out because I don't know her from anything else. Charlotte.
Okay.
I did feel that way about her because, like, especially when you have these like rewinds, you're like, oh wow, she was actually like, and she was acting in the role that she's playing, which is always a fun thing for me. I felt like she knew what kind of movie she was in. I felt like the character who played Lizzie wasn't necessarily like, if she was in on the joke, it wasn't clear enough to me. Like it felt like. Speaking of Verhoeven, it felt like a performance that would be more apt for like Showgirls.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
That's just like not understanding that like this movie is trash and that her character is absurd and that the things that are coming out of her mouth are crazy. Like when that's why I laughed when she was talking about shitting her pants. Like she didn't seem totally sincere, but she also didn't seem to be like she had a sense of humor about that either. It was very odd for me. I've never seen a performance quite like that.
Yeah, and I was trying about the point where she's like, why did she do this to you? Because she's a crazy bitch. I started to think, are we entering Showgirls territory? Is this a story of like feuding women, but it's a satire? It's just exaggerated, but
it wants to be, but it never quite commits to it.
I don't know. It seems, I don't know. It was not clear.
If this movie had come out in like 1998, I would like it so much more. But the fact that it came out when it did, dealing with the issues that it tries very lazily to deal with, makes me very upset. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like if I look back, like Single White Female, a great example. I keep bringing it up. Like that's a movie where I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm down with that because that was a different time.
What is Single White Female even about? This I have no context.
Single White Female is about, it's basically like identity theft sort of story about like two women who become roommates and turns into like a sort of psychological horror movie. And it's very trashy and very sort of like ripped from the headlines of the era. But it doesn't seem to know quite what it is in the same way that this movie doesn't. But because it's from a different time, I'm willing to like forgive it and not ask too many questions about it. But this is like 2019, and this is a movie that deals with like institutional toxic masculinity and rape. Like a very unfortunate time to make a movie about that, and also doesn't seem to have anything profound to say about it.
I'm
That's
about
my
to
issue.
put on.
No, it doesn't have anything profound to say, but I think it offers a pretty, I mean, yes, not nuanced, unsubtle, but I think its heart is in the right place as far as, shutting that shit down.
Whoa, you think this movie has a heart?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think there's anything novel or socially conscious about a rape revenge movie. Like
in general.
Well, no, I will argue with you there.
Well, there could be.
Have you seen Revenge?
I haven't, but I acknowledge that there could be, but it's a trope that's been played out so much. Like this is the argument I got into on Twitter about Tarantino and whether he's a feminist based on his work.
Oh, well, no.
No. Just because you have a woman who kills people doesn't mean it's a feminist movie.
Can we Can we at least take a minute to acknowledge the irony of three men sitting around discussing this issue?
Oh yeah, of
Sure.
course.
Yeah.
We do this often. It's time to check in.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? Let me say, our synopsis tonight was inspired by another podcast called Faculty of Horror, which is two women who are academics and know a lot about actual academic feminism and do feminist critiques of horror movies, and they release it like once a month. Go check them out.
Fucking great show.
Great show.
I'm glad you're into it. I've only listened to 2 episodes.
I wish we
but
were the show that they are, but we're dumb.
We're
shits.
men. We were
So-
born with dicks. Like, this is what we have to live with.
So we've now compensated for discussing women's issues as three men by plugging a
That's-
female-hosted podcast.
You know
all I
what? We're
can do.
trying harder than this movie
like
did to
cap and
excuse
trade.
ourselves.
So Patrick, I'm going to put on my badge and play Woke Police a little bit more in a second. But before I do that, I
Oh,
just want
boy.
to give you the opportunity because you like this movie so much. Is there anything that you want to praise this movie for that we haven't talked about?
Wow.
I
He's
don't
going
know.
through a lot right now.
Not at the moment.
All right, well then I'm going to be Woke Police. The other thing I thought
Wait, can we have a sound effect for Woke Police? Because I think this should be a recurring segment now. Edit something in.
the other thing that I thought was kind of morally reprehensible was that this movie features a homosexual relationship, possibly two homosexual relationships, depending on how you interpret Theus and Jeffrey.
Yeah, that's very unclear.
And
I feel bad for assuming that they were.
I do
together.
too. I do too.
But I think the casting was meant to make us question that.
yes.
That still doesn't sound PC, but I don't care.
Yeah, no,
I'm glad you had the same concern.
I did have the same concern. And again, being cognizant of like, I can't assume anything. I felt like that was maybe in there. And so I was upset with the apparent correlation that they're drawing between homosexuality and fucking child abuse and child rape and showing two women who were raped as children becoming lesbians and two gay men perpetuating the rape.
it's really bizarre. Like, it doesn't make.
You're making a fucking shitload of assumptions there.
Those are not. That's no. That's
A,
just,
that the child abuse has anything to do with their sexual relationship, and B, that those two characters are gay. Why or how would they be committing rape if they were against women if they were gay in the first place?
they might. Oh God! Like, no matter what I
You're
say, it's
making
going
a
to sound
bunch
wrong.
of weird
But you know what?
assumptions.
No,
right?
I'm with Chris on this. When I first saw Theus and Jeffrey, and I've seen this movie twice, I just kind of assumed they were gay.
Right, and I think that's I think that's part of the misdirection. Is you're supposed to be like, oh yes, they're sort of
They're gay. They couldn't be raping women.
well dressed, sort of fey men who are part of a music conservatory. Oh, they're gay.
Well,
you know?
that gets that. So you
I think that's part of the misdirection.
right, which lends to the film's sort of trashy motives that it would do something like that because apparently it was effective. We all three can recognize that that's what
Yeah,
happens.
they're playing to stereotypes. That's our fault, not the film's fault. They're playing on our perception of those stereotypes.
Well,
Okay, well, I will say it's not the film's thought if you can come up with an argument for what that means. Like what is there to be gained from that other than just the pure misdirection that they also happen to be rapists? Because to me, that makes it even more offensive that like this film's going to like not so subtly make you think these guys are gay, and then oh wait, it turns out they rape women. Like, as a gay man, that's doubly offensive to me.
Why?
Because the fact that you would look at someone and think that they're gay based purely on the gaze, on like observing their behavior, even though they don't touch each other, we all three kind of felt that, and then it turns out that they rape women. Like they're evil. Because, I mean, there's this like long history in pop culture of like gay men being villains, or especially trans men.
or, I mean,
they get like
that's-
Dressed to Kill or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the like. I mean, this movie is sorted under the LGBTQ movies on Netflix, presumably because you have two leads who are in a lesbian relationship. When you also tie their relationship to child abuse and rape, and I just think you have to tread very, very carefully. And this is not a movie that's interested in treading carefully on anything.
Right. The fact that it like child abuse or illicit gay sex, like one or the other. Like, this movie is just like interested in going over the top in as many ways as possible. I find that just, I mean, admirable in some sense. Like, it's a ballsy movie, but it doesn't have anything to say about either of those issues. And the fact that it just like lumps it all together kind of like almost seem like you could make the argument that this film cheapens both of those things. That it cheapens child abuse, that it cheapens homosexual relationships.
Let me try. Unless
I mean, y'all have been nothing but negative since we got to the spoiler room, but you know what?
I gotta
view it and accue it, so I'm happy.
I know, I still give it a view, but I'm like, it is a fascinating exercise in like how far can you go in the wrong direction on so many levels and still make a movie that is like compulsively watchable.
Yeah,
I would watch it again.
Let me overreach a little bit.
See, actually, well, hold on to that point for just 1 second. Okay. I just want to follow up on that because I want to say I said this to Chris actually earlier today. I don't know that I would watch it again. I think the pinnacle of my experience with this movie was the first time. The twists and the genre shifts and whatever were all just jaw-dropping for me, and I enjoyed rewatching it. I don't see myself revisiting this, though. I'm not saying your experience is wrong. It's just interesting the different ways we perceived this upon rewatching it and the different ways we seem to approach the possibility of rewatching it again.
Yeah.
Let me try to overreach a bit to the movie's credit, because for a while I was trying to pull a actual like feminist theme out of this movie. And I'm wondering if there was anything attempted there with, you know, the perfection being a metaphor for social expectations on women or anything like that. Am I totally off base on that? Did anyone feel anything like that?
So I guess I would ask first how you think it lacks a feminist theme, because you did raise that point before. Like, how do you think it's not feminist?
I don't think it's unfeminist. I just think that it doesn't really have anything to say about women in society other than, oh, look at this woman have horrible sex crimes perpetuated onto her so that when she stabs this guy, we don't have to feel conflicted about it.
No, it certainly doesn't have anything to say, but why does it need to? Why can't it just be,
because it's
hey,
like,
these women were abused and they're fucking kicking the shit out of their abusers.
This movie is like nonstop controversial imagery and themes. That's why we feel like it needs to say something. Otherwise, I wouldn't care. If it was just like if this were Showgirls, I would just be laughing the whole way through at how bad it is and not worrying about the implications of it. But this movie throws a lot of really strong, erotic and controversial and at times horrific imagery at you. Like it seems like it wants you to think more deeply about it. But there's nothing to think about. It is a feminist film, I would say, in that it's about two women who like survive abuse and get revenge, and also find love in the process and find companionship in a very unique way.
According to Chris, because they were sexually abused.
No, that's not what he said.
He did not say that. He did not imply that. Well, I didn't read it that way.
But you brought up the point that you think the film implies that because they were sexually abused, they're now
I don't think it
lesbians.
implies that. I just think that is a common stereotype and a very harmful stereotype about gay relationships, and that a movie that invokes the two together needs to be very careful about how it does it.
I totally agree with you there.
But I don't think at any point it implies that that's why they're...
It doesn't, but it's a movie
it's like having a movie where you have a Muslim man blowing up a building. Like, that is the pervasive stereotype about people, and it's very harmful. And so if you're going to portray the two together, I don't need an A to B connection in the text of the film.
I don't think that's in the text of the film.
It's not in the text of the film.
At no point while watching this film did I even think for a minute that they were attracted to each other because they had been sexually abused.
Yeah, but those two concepts are correlated so often in pop culture history.
Yes,
and not just pop culture history, but just in our history. That, like if you're gay, it must be because you were abused. I mean, that's still, frankly, a pretty common trope in daily life.
So, but I would say
LGBT folks that like, well, you're gay, so there's something wrong with you. And because I think there's something wrong with you, I'm assuming that it's because something was done to you that shouldn't have been,
and that you might be liable to do something to someone else.
But isn't that trope usually applied? Isn't that stereotype usually applied to gay men being abused by male relatives or friends? I mean, isn't that generally the concept? These women were abused by men, and are now lesbians, which does not fit into that broader social
It
stereotype.
doesn't, but it to me, it's on the same path. It's like, oh, they were abused, and now they're doing something that I would say, frankly, this movie, I don't know how to quantify it. You guys might disagree with me, but I felt that their sexual relationship was played to be read as deviant. Did you guys feel that way?
Like, I don't know if I felt that way. I see why you're saying that, but I don't.
I did not feel that way, but I did feel that way.
It didn't seem genuine.
I did feel that way about Brad Dourif's daughter and Jennifer Tilly. So
Okay.
so let's just make it known that I am sensitive to that issue.
I guess because, again, we keep using the term trashy, it felt like they were making out just to shock us. And if you're going to do that in a film that also tells us that both of these girls were abused, like, I just don't feel comfortable about those two things sitting with each other in the same 90 minutes. It's weird. Why would you do that?
At least without giving us something more to why this is all necessary.
Like, Cronenberg could have made a better movie. Cronenberg could have taken this script, done another draft, and made an amazing movie that was like, you know, psychosexual thriller and body horror, and it would have been fantastic. But like, this is a good looking movie. It's mostly well acted, but there's too much going on for the clumsy hands that it's in.
Nah, see, this is the thing. I don't necessarily think this movie is perfect, and
well, you know what happens if it's not perfect, Patrick.
Ooh.
It's what's expected of you.
Taking that a little too lightly there,
yeah,
Chris.
I know. I didn't like that.
It's not perfect, but I can't imagine it being done better.
No, it's never going to be a good movie, but like it could be less upsetting in the wrong ways.
It's never going to be a good movie. It's always going to be a great one.
Like, I would not expect this to be a great movie, and I want it to be upsetting. I mean, like, part of the draw was like hearing about it and being like, oh, there's like bugs in it and there's like all this weird. I'm like, what is going on? This sounds fascinating, but like, it could be upsetting without being like morally reprehensible.
And again,
which is what it winds up being.
I don't want to be the guy who watches a horror movie and is like, well, this isn't politically correct.
Because that's why we love, like, I love bad movies that like I love camp. I love to laugh at like, oh my God, they actually genuinely said that line in a movie that's so offensive. But it was the 70s. Like, that stuff is funny to me.
Maybe if the overall tone of the movie hadn't seemed so straight-laced until we started getting into this stuff, I might have accepted it better, but it was just kind of upsetting to me.
Yeah, well, you are the woke police.
All right, I gotta complain about the rewinds, too.
Oh, I fucking hated that! Because I will say the second rewind I didn't need because I knew what happened.
Okay,
essentially,
I disagree. I the second rewind I thought was more egregious.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
well, no, that's what I'm saying. The second one was more egregious. Like, the second
I loved
one
the
was
rewinds.
Like, you like, that's a terrible effect. Like, show me a flashback. The whole rewind, like,
well, forget about the aesthetics of the actual rewind effect. Let's just talk about the
we don't need to because it's stupid.
Editing decision. The decision to withhold information and then show it to you in a flashback works, I think, for the bus incident. It works for Charlotte poisoning Lizzie. Because
well, it does, because like for a while you think you're in like a fucking, like, I don't know, like a Junji Ito graphic novel.
Tons of fun.
Great, but it's like there's got to be like I honestly I didn't expect there to be I knew nothing about this movie going into it except for the reputation. I thought, like, I don't know, maybe she does have a virus and there were bugs inside of her.
Yeah, why not? Sure.
Why not? And like, what's going to happen after that?
The second rewind, I guess to me, it felt like a manufactured twist ending. They withhold information from the audience that both of the protagonists know.
Yes.
To make a hero seem like a villain until the last minute. And I'm trying to think of like a classic film or something I could use as an example where it's
I've been working that over too, and I can't
either. It's like they took a huge block of character development out of the middle of the movie and tacked it onto the end of the movie just so a character's actions would be surprising at the end. And
I want to say it's unique. Like our listeners might know better than us. I mean, I would hope not, because we are horror experts, but I can't say I've ever seen anything quite like that. It was weirdly unsettling, jarring, and ultimately satisfying.
It was like if you took Star Wars and you cut out The Empire Strikes Back and most of Return of the Jedi. And you get to
you can definitely cut out most of Return of the Jedi regardless.
Okay.
But
And you get to the point where Luke's being electrocuted by the Emperor and Darth Vader's standing there watching. And then he picks up and kills the Emperor. And then you show us all the little steps along the way.
By the way, I drugged you 7 years ago.
It's like...
And I told you I was your father.
Oh, by the way, here's all the things that happened to bring Darth Vader to the point where he felt like he should do this.
You guys just got trolled and you can't deal with it.
I guess. But you like, I mean...
We're trolling back, dude. We're trolling back hard. We're trolling back respectfully.
The perfection trolled you a little, you're trolling it back.
We're trolling back respectfully. We're meeting it on its level.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say perhaps above its level.
Oh, maybe.
I don't think this movie really necessitates this kind of thoughtful discussion, but here we are.
Here's my final thought on... for some reason, I was going to say It, then I was going to say Don't Kill It. Neither of those.
D. Wallace from It.
Neither of those are the movie that we watched. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh man, just bringing up one of my most painful memories of my life.
You
there.
do that for me all the time, Patrick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We could go this way or we could go that way.
True. Oh, that's one of the most painful memories of your life.
No, it's not really.
I love the climax of this movie. Like when that title came up today, when I rewatched it, Chapter 4, Duet, I was like, oh yeah, let's go.
It's fun. It's fun.
It's great.
It's a thrill ride.
I mean, it's violent, it's brutal, and you just want them to earn every minute of it, and they fucking do. And it's great. It's great.
Would you...
Great climax.
Where I get stuck is, would we still be okay with that level of violence if there weren't physical rape involved?
God, I don't
mean. What do you mean? Like if there were some other form of abuse perpetrated?
If all the
them,
abuse was going on, and the kids, people were still brainwashed and being driven to suicide and whatever by the oppression of the conservatory, but they weren't actually fucking kids. Would we? I don't know.
I don't know. Who knows? I mean, I think it's. I mean, you know, sure, maybe it's not the most responsible movie, but it's very much a movie of the moment. I mean, it's dealing with that Me Too kind of fucking bullshit.
Clumsily, but it is doing it. Yes.
Yes.
Like I'm not gonna hate on it. I gave it a view. We could go on all night.
But Chris has been staring at his iPad for 20 minutes, which means he wants to tell us what we're watching next.
Yeah, what are we watching next week?
All right, so forgive me if I mispronounced
in 2 weeks from now.
But we are officially moving into the D's. D as in dog. But our next film...
Moving into the D's.
It's a Turkish film, so I'm not sure of this pronunciation. I think it's Dabi. Dabi.
Like Dobby, like Harry Potter? Like the house elf?
Dabe. I don't know.
He has his own franchise now?
It's Dabbe. Dabi.
Dabe.
The Dabby.
The Possession is a Turkish
Wait, Dobby,
film.
like colon the possession?
Yes.
And this is the first of 3, right?
God, I love a colon.
Actually, there are 6. There is a Dobby 5 and a Dobby 6 on Netflix.
We talked about this. Yeah, the broken franchise.
I'm not sure if Dobby 2, 3, or 4 are on Netflix, categorized somewhere else. We'll have to look into it.
So we're going to watch the first installment, and then we're going to miss 3 movies worth of Dabe development, and then we're going to drop back in like a child who has wandered into a conversation on 5 and 6.
Find your element.
And then maybe we can watch 2, 3, and 4
Well, you guys,
at the very
you have
end,
to remember,
like a twist.
We might have talked about this on the first episode, or it might have been a pre-Amon conversation, but like I thought when we talked about how we were going to do the A to Z thing with franchises, I was like, wouldn't it be like when we come across Hellraiser 2, we're just not going to watch Hellraiser 1.
If
It's going to be like Hellraiser like 2 and 5, and that's all. And we have to just try and make sense of the franchise. That was my exact example.
If it's available on Netflix, we go in chronological order. If it's not available on Netflix,
right,
then we
like
just-
if it's like alphabetically elsewhere, we can watch it.
Right.
But if it's just that's it, then that's where we go.
right. So we might just watch Dobby, Dobby 5, Dobby 6.
Well,
I'm
and it
fine
may
with
be
that.
of interest to our listeners to hear that we briefly considered watching all 3 of these and reviewing all of them in a single episode. And then we were just like, no, fuck that. We're not watching 7 hours of fucking movie. And
They're like 3
trying
hours
to fit
long
them all
each.
They're long
into
movies. We'll
a single
see.
episode.
We'll see. We're gonna watch this first one, and then we're gonna see what we want to do.
Yeah. You know, can I throw in one final quick note here on the
might.
perfection?
Yes.
You might.
I want to hear from our listeners. If you've seen The Perfection, tell us what you thought. I'm really curious to hear other people's opinions on this movie. Particularly, I would like to hear women's opinions on this movie.
Was it perfection or did it fall flat?
Yeah. Oh. And if you want us to share your opinion, we'll read a little mail on the next show. Yeah?
Sure.
A little mail. Like Neville. Mail. I love that he refers to email as mail.
Yeah.
I got some mail. I keep getting mail from my
send
fans.
us some mail.
Yeah.
Tell us what you thought of the
Also,
perfection.
Neville, I hope you're listening, buddy.
Tell us if
Thank
it was.
you.
Hey Neville. Tell us if it was a view it, cue it, or screw it for you, and let's continue the conversation.
Sure. Yeah, it'd be great to hear from everybody. As always, everyone can contact us on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram.
What if
or
they troll
email.
us?
They can troll us. We'll troll them back. It's all a beautiful thing. But otherwise,
Wow, it used to be we might troll you back. Now it's a promise. We're
So
gonna
we
fucking
are
troll
going-
you back.
You can fucking expect that we're
That's
gonna
a
troll you
guarantee.
hard.
Yeah, well, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Otherwise, with Dobby the Possession. So we'll see you then. For every horror movie on Netflix, I'm Chris,
I'm Patrick.
I'm Steven.
and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.